Welcome to the Saturday Night podcast. I'm your host, Seth Saunders, and week 8 is here, and we are fired up to have our guest picker this week, Jon Smith, with us. Jon, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, man, glad to be here.
So,
Excited to make these picks.
yeah, man, lot of picks this week. It's an interesting slate, I will say. As y'all will hear as we go through this, your host may have been reaching a little bit on these picks, but we're gonna have fun with it either way. Not a not a blockbuster week like it has been the past 3 weeks. We've been swole, but hey, look, any weekend of college football is better than none. So I'm fired up about it, regardless.
100%.
Before we pick these games, I want to talk to you about the elephant in the room. If you are a Dawgs fan, is that is the absence of Brock Bowers for the foreseeable future. So, what were your initial thoughts when the news came out, and how do you see things progressing in his absence?
Man, I was terrified. I mean, what do you mean? As a Georgia fan, it's like, I don't know. Initial thoughts. I think for me, Brock Bowers, my initial thoughts, honestly, I was just sad for the dude. I think Brock
Yeah.
Bowers he's done nothing but do everything right. He's obviously, from everything that I know and what the coaches have said publicly, he's one of the hardest workers, if not the hardest worker on the team. Dude has put out everything into this year. And so you hate injuries are the worst part of football, worst part of the sport. And so I hated it for him. I will say, when I heard that he was going to have the tightrope surgery, that actually made me feel a little bit better. That's something that, really speeds up the recovery process, and he'll probably be in a better place longer term for his career. From having it, which is weird to say. But yeah, as a Georgia fan with the team wise, it does not concern me to lose Brock Bowers. It concerns me, it concerns you to lose the best player on the offensive side of the ball that's not a quarterback in college football, right? I mean, Brock Bowers is an incredible athlete, but this is why you recruit. This is why you go to the portal and you get Dominic Lovett and you get Ra Thomas. This is why you recruit so deep at tight end. Todd Hartley has recruited that position better than anyone in the country, except for maybe Brian Hartline recruiting wide receivers at Ohio State. I mean, the dude he's recruited some absolute studs, and this is why they come to Georgia. They come to Georgia for the next man up, and they come to Georgia for this opportunity. So those are my thoughts on it. I'm not concerned about how Georgia will respond. I think you've got some really good guys on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Sad was a good way to put it, and not as a fan or as anything like that. I was sad because what I had enjoyed thus far was him being legitimately in the conversation for the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
I thought he deserved that notoriety, and I thought it was justified. And I think, absent the injury and absent missing this time, I do think he's sitting in New York come second week in December, because I think he would have justified it with his play on the field. So that made me sad, because I thought that would have been a really cool story for him and for college football in general. But yeah, to your point, man, the tightrope thing also kind of fired me up, because I think it speaks to who he is, which is he wants to get back on the field as soon as possible and help this team, because that's just how he is, man. I was really struck by him at SEC Media Days from a presence perspective. He just seems like an inherently humble kid that all he wants to do is go out and play football. All the rest of the noise and the attention, he don't really care, man. He just wants to play ball and win games, and that's it. And boy, that's so easy to love in a kid. So yeah, man. Well, let me ask you this. Of the, I guess, stretch that he's anticipated to miss, which game gives you the most heart palpitations?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. I think, honestly, if you look and you say there's a potential he could be back for Tennessee, which I've heard. So if you look, let's just say Florida, Mizzou, and Ole Miss. To be honest, it's Mizzou, and the reason it's Mizzou is I think Mizzou is the only team in that list that has real potential to stretch Georgia's defense, and I think you have an opportunity where the Georgia defense has played well when it's had to this year, but there have been times when it just hasn't really played well overall. Stretches of the game, I guess, especially in the red zone kind of thing. And so if you look at a team that could potentially score some points on Georgia, I think that's potentially Mizzou. And so that's what makes me nervous, is that you have a team like that where you might get into a situation where you need a guy like Brock Bowers to make a play. I'm not concerned about Florida. I'm not concerned about Ole Miss for two reasons. Number one, Florida has Billy Napier and Ole Miss has Lane Kiffin, and I just think Kirby Smart will outcoach both of those guys.
Yeah.
I do think Eli Drinkwitz is probably one of the better, most underrated guys in the SEC of using his personnel on the offensive side of the ball and finding ways to do stuff. We saw it last year when Georgia went up to Mizzou. It's like you just find ways to make something happen. So that's my take. I think Mizzou is the one that makes me a little bit nervous in that stretch.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. It's funny. I've thought about this a little bit this week, and initially, I think on paper, if you're just looking at personnel and what they like to do offensively, Ole Miss is the one that makes you the most nervous, right? Because they've got a quarterback that, in theory, can pull it and stretch the edge, which has given Georgia problems this year. They've got very competent running game. They can sling it a little bit. But to your point, I don't trust Lane Kiffin at all, especially in a game that'll be of magnitude. I mean, he will just shoot
100%.
himself in the foot. And I think you just wait for him to do that. And so,
the scariest thing – oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The scariest thing for Georgia is that if Ole Miss actually – I would say the best thing for Georgia is if Ole Miss actually – wins a few games and comes in ranked, and Lane Kiffin comes in with all that pressure on him to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, if Ole Miss drops a couple and he comes in with nothing to lose, then man, I don't know, but I don't trust him either way. But hopefully he comes in with a ranked team, and Georgia generally rises to the occasion in those environments.
All right, so we got 10 games on the docket this week, and as we discussed earlier, there are going to be some ones that people hear when we announce them and go, boy, we were digging deep in the bag this week for games. And that's okay. That's what we're here for. We cover all of college football in addition to covering the Dawgs. So we're gonna touch on everywhere, all throughout the nation this week, boys. All right, first one is a little bit of a hard choice here. My beloved co-host, Alma Mater, is one of the 11 unbeaten teams still remaining in college football. And I also put this on here just so we can all kind of talk a little bit on the absurdity that they are ineligible for any postseason play, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And I was telling somebody, I read about it because I was curious, like, what's the premise for the rule, right? And the more I've read about it, the more irritated I get, because the reasoning is, well, we put the rule in place to discourage schools that weren't ready from making the jump. It's like, what does that even mean? Like, and if you are ready, you just get punished for 2 years because it is the dumbest logic I have ever read in my life. So yeah, with that intro, we are going to pick JMU going to Huntington to play the Marshall Thundering Herd. JMU is a 3.5-point road favorite, but Huntington been a tough place to play this year. Thundering Herd is undefeated on their home field and have some pretty, I would say, nice wins. They got Power 5 wins over Virginia Tech, and they beat ECU, they beat ODU, gave NC State all they wanted. But I think we have chatted on this show, and I know where my boy's going to land. JMU is a wagon, and I would put out there with a big old flag planted in the ground that they are the best college football program in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I don't really know if there's an argument to that, but I'm just going to say that. And we have watched that program develop from FCS all the way up to FBS. But John, how you feeling on this one, brother?
Man, I love James Madison University. Kurt Signetti, all that guy does is win. He's 47-8 as head coach at James Madison. He won at Elon. He won. He's the kind of guy. He's very similar, I think, to like a Lance Leopold at Kansas, where he's been at some of these smaller programs, but all he's done is win. And he has James Madison, cooking. It's a top 25 offense versus the FBS. I think James Madison is going to win. I think what's going to happen we'll go a little bit of a longer game. Not only do I think James Madison is going to win this game, but I think it's going to come down to James Madison and Air Force, at the end of the year, of like when you're thinking about who's the best group of 5 team. And it is unfortunate, the bowl situation. I did read Brett McMurphy did say that there's a potential for them to make a bowl if there wasn't enough bowl eligible teams, but they but they're not eligible for a New Year's Six bowl or the college football playoff. So for sure. So, but yeah, give me James Madison. I think they're going to win. I think, 3.5 points is nothing there. I think they're going to cover the 3.5. Again, no disrespect. Marshall's played very good football. They're very good at home. But I'm a believer, man.
Well, for 2 straight weeks, this will now be the easiest pick in the history of the show for my co-host. So, Jimmy, where you sit on this one, buddy?
I'm going with I'm going with the Dukes. I mean, their offense hasn't been stopped all season. I don't see the Herd stopping them this week. And until someone does stop them on offense, I'm going to continue to pick them. And until the spread gets up over 7.5, I will pick them every week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with them too, man. I mean, they just seem like a freight train. And I'm going to tell you this. If they break out them icy whites like they wore last weekend again, it's curtains, boys. Like, they are not getting beat looking that fresh. John, I will tell you this. James knows this about me, but I am very much a prescriber to the Coach Prime theory, and that is look good, play good, get paid good. And so them boys were looking fresh last weekend.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm all on the Dukes too. All right, the next one is the sexiest matchup of the week. I think it is a who are you for both of these teams, really, right? I mean, I guess Ohio State could say they've proven that by going into South Bend and getting a win, but I still think there's lots of questions about them, right? Notre Dame has obviously showed they're a flawed football team. I think there are still questions about McCord and that Ohio State offense and what they're going to look like. And as the question I think has been with Penn State for a while, when they play a quality opponent, can they get over the hump and can they score enough points? And so they are going into the horseshoe, and Ohio State is a 3.5-point home favorite there. How do you feel about this one, John?
Yeah, listen, I think this is the ultimate prove-it game for James Franklin, right? I mean, James Franklin is he's beaten Ohio State once, I think, but I think he's 1-10 versus Ohio State. Has never beaten Ohio State in Columbus. The one thing I do think is that this Ohio State team definitely doesn't have the offense that you have seen, that we have felt from Ohio State teams in the past. And I think Penn State's defense is for real. Like, I really do. I think that defense is, especially the linebackers and secondary, I think is one of the top in the country. I think Penn State is going to cover the 3.5. I don't know if they're going to win. I'm not, I wouldn't personally, I'm not going to bet this game at all. I'm staying away from it, but I do think Penn State's going to keep it close, and they're going to have a chance to win the football game. And I think it's going to come down to James Franklin and that pressure cooker. Is this the game that he can finally get them in a situation with the chance to win it and actually have Drew Allard or somebody to make a play and actually win the football game? So, but I think it's going to be really close, and I'm personally excited to see it. I hope Penn State can pull it out. I think they're definitely going to cover though.
James, what you feeling on this one, Bo?
That actually was my complete analysis right there. I've been very adamant about how much I cannot stand Franklin on this show, and I just think he's a jackass. But this is his make or break game, and he's got another one against Michigan in a couple of weeks, but that's at home. So I feel like that if they do not win this game, that their season is just going to go into a tailspin. But I do feel that they're going to cover, and I actually think I have them winning this game. I am not going to bet it. I'm going to stay away from it as well. I'm going to just, have a couple beers and enjoy it. But I'm just not sold on Ohio State this year. I'm not sold on McCord. They look off. Something looks off this year with them. They haven't looked like they've looked any of the last 5 to 7 years. They just look off.
Yeah, definitely not the killing machine. And then you throw Penn State in there, and Penn State, I think their average scoring margin is like 32 points a game at this point. So I don't know. What do you think, Seth?
I like the Nittany Lions to cover in this. I'm with you, boys. I wouldn't put hard-earned money on this, but I think this is going to be a beautiful football game. This game kind of, I don't think it will be this, but I was so excited for that Oregon-Washington game last weekend because I just thought it was going to be great theater. And I think this will be that way. I mean, look, you got two historic programs, both undefeated, facing off with big things on the line. I think James Franklin has a lot to prove. I think, obviously, with the things Ryan Day has said this year, he's obviously feeling like he has something to prove. I think it has all the makings for an outstanding matchup. Also, boys, I'm going to be fully frank with y'all. Raise your hand if you knew Manny Diaz was Penn State's defensive coordinator. Your boy did not. And like
I haven't I don't have a Manny Diaz tracker. I had no idea.
I had no idea. I was reading up over the weekend about this matchup, and I saw that, and I thought, man, I think one of the things that gets undersold a lot, and I think Coach Saban has been outstanding at this, and Kirby has showed that he's been great at this, but building a staff with guys that either have been head coaches or are very much projecting to become head coaches is a very, I think, undervalued marker that we look at when we're evaluating programs. And look, man, Manny Diaz, regardless of how successful he was, he's been at different programs as the head guy. So to have that leading your defensive room with the talent that they have there, man, they're tough, man. And so I'm super, super interested to see how they come out and rip on Saturday. So, yeah, I'm with you, boys. I'm taking the Nittany Lions. I like them to at least cover, and I do think they got a shot to win straight up. So I think it's going to be a super fun game.
I agree with
All right. The next one, boys, third Saturday in October. Tennessee rolling down the river to Tuscaloosa to play the Crimson Tide. I'll tell you, the number on this makes this spicy for me. Alabama, 9.5-point home favorite. I think they've obviously found their footing a little bit, but they also are not still the Alabama that we're used to, right? They're getting sacked at a historic clip under Coach Saban. They're having a difficult time, I think, really laying the hammer like we're used to seeing them do. But they're going to be on a home field. Tennessee has obviously not been the offensive juggernaut with Joe Milton that they were last year with Hendon Hooker. How you feeling on this one, John?
Listen, I think, Tennessee, yes, they have not been the juggernaut. What Tennessee has done, though, is they have quietly put together one of the better offenses, one of the better defenses in the SEC, if not the nation, right? I mean, Tennessee, they're 11th in the country versus FPS in yards per game allowed. They run the ball, dude. I mean, Tennessee is, those running backs. I think it was, I can't remember if it was Josh Pay. I was listening to somebody last night, and they were talking about how angry Tennessee's running backs are running the football this year. Like, they are taking it on their shoulders of like, hey, our passing game, quarterback may not be what we thought he was. Our wide receivers may not be getting it done. So we're going to put it on our shoulders and get it done. The challenge is, Alabama, can you run the ball against Alabama? And, Tennessee hasn't beat Alabama in 20 years in Tuscaloosa. There's so many things that you look at this and you say, Tennessee's strength right now is running the ball. Alabama's defense is very good against the run, all these things. But I think Tennessee's going to cover that spread. I mean, I do. I think this is a game where, if you look at how Alabama has played, I mean, look at versus Arkansas last week, right? Jumped out to a lead, 21-6, got outscored 15-3 in the second half, almost lost the game. I think Tennessee is going to keep it close. I would not be surprised if they actually win this football game. I think they're coming in and they have the traits now, I think, to beat Alabama at Alabama's on game, running the football, playing tough defense, keeping possession of the ball. And man, Jalen Milroe, I just don't think he's that dude. So I guess, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be probably a good bit ugly at times. But I think Tennessee's going to cover that 9-point spread for sure.
James, what you think about this one, brother?
I'm with Tennessee as well to cover. Tennessee, going into last week, was second in the SEC in sacks. I don't think they took over Texas A&M, although they might have as many times as they sacked Max Johnson last week. But with as many sacks as Alabama's given up, I think it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be close. It very well may play out exactly like the Arkansas game did last week. But as the way Tennessee runs the ball and controls the clock, it's going to be close. They're going to have a shot at the end of the game. They may win outright, but I definitely think they cover the 9.5. The spread scares me. This is one of those stinks out loud spreads that Vegas knows something we don't. I don't like the spread, but I definitely think that Tennessee can cover this.
Yeah, I'm with you boys, and I'll tell you, I probably wouldn't have felt that way pre-Texas A&M game, but I thought, given the prowess of A&M's D-line, the way that Tennessee came out, physically asserted themselves, and really controlled the line of scrimmage in that football game, I was impressed, man. And I will say this about Coach Heupel's teams. Obviously, they got a lot of hype last year because, they're flinging it up and down the field and scoring at such a historic clip and all these things, right? But at the basis even of that offense last year, he runs the football. And, he played at Oklahoma. They ran the football. Like, it's in his DNA. And I think they do that well. And I will say this. I have been a critic of Joe Milton, as James will tell you, thinking that at the end of the year, people would appreciate Hendon Hooker a lot more than they did when Hendon Hooker left. And I still believe that. But I will say this about Joe Milton. Seems like a tough kid. And I think if he can limit mistakes Saturday, they have a good chance to win the football game. Because I just think, man, with the pressure, Milroe's going to make some mistakes. And he just is. He's going to make 3 or 4 plays where you go, wow. Like, this dude is electric. But he's also going to make 3 or 4 and you go, what in the world is he thinking? And how much is Coach Saban going to eat his butt in film time? Because, it's just going to be so angry. Also, can we talk about Coach Saban with maybe quote of the year, talking about KJ Jefferson on Saturday? I absolutely loved it when he's throwing grown men in the SEC off him like a cow swatting a gnat off his ass. Oh, God. Outstanding. When the West Virginian Coach Saban comes out, I am absolutely here for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's having fun. Listen, here's what I'll say now that we've gotten that pick out of the way, because that's the one that I was most curious about. We are all on Tennessee to cover. So if you're listening to this, you should probably bet on Alabama to cover this. Because I will say, you mentioned Vegas knowing something. It is that kind of thing when everybody's kind of moving that direction. But I say that, and then I felt this is very similar to last year, right? I think it was very similar last year. Alabama was a favorite going into Knoxville. That Tennessee offense was peaking, was a juggernaut, and everybody was saying Tennessee's about to beat Alabama, and Vegas still had that number out there, and then Tennessee actually beat them. So I feel like it has some shades to that too, just in a different way.
I will tell you what gives me a little pause too is their showing in Gainesville does not exactly give me all the warm feelings about what could happen, because that's been obviously their most hostile road environment that they played in. And boy, they did not look ready for the lights that night. Now, granted, that was weeks ago, and we're very fond here of saying that football teams are constantly evolving and figuring out who they are. So, look, it's been a month and probably a different Tennessee football team, but still that makes me a little nervous. I mean, look, Bryant Denny is some serious jaws to walk into. So it's going to be interesting for sure. All right, same time slot, another very interesting matchup in the SEC. And again, I think because of the number, South Carolina heading to Columbia to play Mizzou. Mizzou coming off a thumping of Kentucky, and I like this Mizzou team, man. I love Luther Burden. I would pay my own money to watch Luther Burden play. Like, I love watching that kid play. Brady Cook's been outstanding. They run the football well. I do have questions about their defense. But look, boys, we're talking a fourth quarter meltdown away against LSU from them being undefeated right now. So I think they're one of the more undersold stories of the year in college football, what Eli's doing out there. But how do we feel about this with South Carolina coming off choking one away against Florida at Willie B and trying to go in here and get things right, John?
Man, I do not feel good if I'm a South Carolina fan right now. I think, what you mentioned, not only is Mizzou one of the kind of more undertold stories, had an opportunity to be 6-1. Their defense has looked awful against LSU. It looked awful against LSU. It looked awful against Kansas State. But, man, that South Carolina defense made Graham Mertz look like he was freaking Joe Montana or somebody. I mean, it made, like, this dude, like, that dude just really like sliced them up. 423 yards passing. So when I think about that and I look at what Brady Cook, Luther Burden, those guys, how Mizzou is built, I think Mizzou is going to beat South Carolina, and I think they're going to beat them pretty badly. I don't think it's going to be a kind of Kentucky kind of thumping, that kind of thing. But I do think it's going to be a 2-score game with Mizzou winning. And I think Shane Beamer coming in, he kicked something he shouldn't have kicked and broke his foot. And I just think South Carolina right now is just in a bad space mentally. And I think they're also in a pretty bad space on the defensive side of the football. And I think Mizzou's going to take an opportunity to have a big win.
Where are you sitting on this one, James? Are we going to have our first divergence of the day here?
I have flip-flopped on this one probably a dozen times on this, and I'm going to settle on Mizzou, and it comes down to coaching. And I love Drink. I think he's probably one of the more underrated coaches in the SEC, and I think he has been for a long time, and I think it took him a while to get his footing at Mizzou. And I think Beamer's he's just kind of a douche. I really can't think of a better term for him. Mm-hmm. And I think he's the shine's kind of worn off after the end of last season. And I think you're kind of seeing more of who he really is. And really South Carolina will go as far as Rattler will take them. And I have been very adamant about how much of a fan I am not of Spencer Rattler. So as long as he is the quarterback there, I do not think that they will win anything. And I think that I agree with John, this is a 2-score game. I think he'll make a mistake late, throw a pick six, and, they'll pull away at the end.
Something just ain't right with that South Carolina program, man. I can't put my finger on it, but I was talking to a buddy at work about this because I live in South Carolina. I said, look, man, you should not be the name-bearing institution of the Palmetto State and not have talent that you can compete on a weekly basis and feel good about things. This is a talent-rich state that if you're able to recruit it, bring guys in and develop them, you can do just fine. And I told him this too, man, watching them against us, they've got enough talent in that defense to be just fine. So there's something going on there. And look, John, we'll let you in on this. James knows this, and he's probably sick of me saying it, but I base a lot of things off what I saw on QB1 for the 3 seasons that it was on. Mm-hmm. It was what I've always steeped my opinion of Justin Fields in, and why I felt so good about the choice to keep Jake at quarterback when the two of them were there. And I've felt that way about Spencer Rattler, even before he got to South Carolina at Oklahoma. It just felt like, man, this is a guy that's way, way more worried about the name on the back of the jersey than the name on the front of the jersey. And look, I could be 100% wrong about that, okay? I don't know the kid. He has all the talent in the world, and dude, when he turns it on, he is electric, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm not debating any of that. But what I am saying is when you're the best player on the team and you are playing at the premier position, you got to be the leader, And I don't know, man. It just seems like there's a disconnect there. And I don't trust him for that reason.
I'll tell you what it is from my perspective, and we don't have to go deep into South Carolina on this because we don't have time, but it's culture, man. It's fake juice. And at the end of the day, South Carolina, they've got a good football team. I just looked up as you were talking. They're number 8 in the SEC in the 24/7 talent composite, right? They're not, when you look at the teams they're playing, on paper, they are more talented than Ole Miss, than Missouri, than Mississippi State, than Kentucky, than Arkansas. When you look at at what's happening, I just think it's fake juice. I'm not a Shane Beamer believer, and I think he was able to channel it in a way late last year to get those 2 top 10 wins at the end of the season. But I think what happens is when that thing starts going south, he has not found a way to actually build the program that has the mental toughness to bounce back, because I'll just say it, I just don't think he has the mental toughness to actually bounce back from some of these situations that South Carolina has been in.
Yeah, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And obviously I am on Mizzou as well, boys. Yeah. I think Luther Burden has a big day. I think it is I think the folks at Shakespeare's are real happy. They're going to sell a lot of pizzas and pitchers of beer on Saturday evening. So, yeah, it'll be a good day in Columbia. Okay, this is one that's on the list where I put it on here because of the absurdity of the fact that Iowa is likely going to go 11-1 and play in the Big Ten title game. But they are playing Minnesota in a game that is going to set the game of college football back offensively probably 115 years. Iowa is a 3.5-point favorite. Boys, they may not score 3.5-point game total in this game. So how are we feeling on this one, John?
Man, I think this game. Iowa. I'll just keep it short and sweet. I was going to win this game, like 13-2. It's going to be like the most bizarre. You know what I mean? It's going to be. I mean, they won a game 15-6 or something. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
I think Iowa. I think they're going to win this game by double digits, but the whole total won't be 20 points. It's going to be very ugly, but I think Iowa's going to cover, and I think Iowa's like, it's. I think they're going to find a way to score the least points in college football history in a season total, and make a conference championship game. Like, it's just going to be wild.
Now that you brought the total up, I completely dropped the ball on this. There's nothing on the planet that my boy loves more than betting a total. And I should have just made this a game where we bet the total.
That would be great.
Hand up, I messed that up. That's on me. Okay. But how you feeling about this, Jimmy? Where do you sit on this?
I think the over-under is set at 33, which I am shocked at right now. If it is
Hammer the under.
If it is over 30 by kickoff, I'll be shocked. But I'm going to say exactly what I texted you on this. I got Iowa in a rock fight, because that is what this is going to be. Iowa's going to cover, but it's going to be ugly. It's going to be like they're playing in a monsoon. That's how they play football.
This is my commentary on this. It is shocking when you can say, and maybe be right, that I think Iowa may have the better offense in this game. Minnesota has been that anemic when it comes to scoring points, and I just hate to see it. I love PJ Fleck. I'm a row the boat guy, but boy, they have had a tough year, and losing all the upperclassmen that they lost in offense. Whew, it's been tough sledding. So I'm with you boys. I'm taking the Hawkeyes too, which this is probably my least confident pick in the 4 years of doing this show. So it could be like, to your point, John, it could be like 9-5. Like safety and field goal for the Gophers. Yeah,
you got two teams that are 102 and 104 in scoring offense.
Yeah. All right, this next one, boys. I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited about this one. I think this is two fun programs. Toledo playing Miami of Ohio. Big game in the MAC. We got the two division leaders facing off. Toledo is a 1.5-point road favorite. Love DeQuan Finn, their quarterback there. Look, boys, they are a last-second field goal against Illinois from being undefeated. I mean, they are a fun team to watch. Also, guess who is leading the charge for the Red Hawks of Miami? It is Blaine Gabbert's younger brother, Brett, under center for the boys in Miami of Ohio. So, fun little game, man. And their only loss this year was the opener against the real Miami.
Yeah.
So, how are we feeling on this one?
Man, Miami has they've rolled off 6 wins in a row too, I believe, after losing. Maybe it was they lost to the other Miami. I like Toledo. I think Toledo. You mentioned it. It's a fun team. I think it's a team that can score a lot of points. I think Miami of Ohio is playing some of the best football in the group of 5 right now. But I think Toledo's going to go in and get it done. Like, I think, there's a reason though that this game is 1.5. But I think Toledo's going to go in and win the game. I think Toledo has a few better athletes on the outside on both sides of the ball, and I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. But I'm going with Toledo.
James, where you sit on this one?
I'm going with Blaine Gabbert's younger brother. First point of divergence here. So
finally,
I'm going with, in my opinion, what is the real Miami after Cristobal's big gaffe a few weeks ago. So give me Miami of Ohio to win this one.
I'm taking DeQuan Finn here, man. I like this Toledo team. I think their offense is fun. I think he gives you multiple ways to hurt you. He can do it with his legs. He does it with his arm. They played in back-to-back bowls. They seem to have a good culture there. But I think it's going to be a super fun game. This could very easily be a game that Miami of Ohio wins. And I think we'll see these teams again probably against each other in the MAC championship game. But yeah, I'm gonna take Toledo in this one. All right, the next one, I'm sure both of you are like, why in the hell are we picking Colorado State and UNLV? I'm gonna tell you why. Because I think this UNLV team is a lot of fun, and Barry Odom's there, and has changed his style. And dude, they are running a wild offense. This cat, Brennan Marion's our offensive coordinator, had prior stops at William and Mary, and then before that, he was at Howard, both places with Coach London. He was the offensive coordinator for the Kayla Newton-led team that went into UNLV, ironically, and beat them straight up when it was the biggest point spread in history where that had ever happened. They run that go-go offense, man. It is crazy, crazy eye candy before the snap, and they're averaging over 40 points a game. I just think they're a super fun team. They got one loss on the year. Playing a Colorado State team who has been interesting, man. 3-3, obviously had all that juice when they played Colorado and took them down to the wire. And yeah, just thought it was a fun game to pick. So UNLV 7.5-point home favorite. Running Rebels homecoming this week at Allegiant Stadium. How you feel about this one, John?
Listen, I don't know much about either of these teams. I'm not going to lie. I didn't do a whole lot of research. I do think Mike Odom is a great coach. I think Colorado State they won one of those 3 games on the Hail Mary last week, which was super fun to see. But I think UNLV is going to win, and I think they're going to cover. I think Mike Odom is one of the more underrated head coaches in college football. I think the guy knows how to build programs. I think there was a reason that Arkansas has fallen off since he left, I think UNLV is going to get it done.
What you feel like on this one, James?
I'm going with UNLV as well. Colorado State, their most impressive game was the loss against Colorado. I mean, that 3 minutes against Boise last week was really impressive, but I mean that's a 1 in a million shot that happens. Getting the couple of onside kicks and the Hail Mary to win down 21 with 3 minutes left, that's just bananas. So Colorado State, I mean, they've been fun, but I think UNLV is much better, and I think they're going to roll at home.
I agree. I think it's going to be a fun homecoming for the Rebels. I think that go-go offense is jamming all day. So, yeah, I like UNLV in this one, too.
I also called him Mike Odom. I know it's Barry Odom. Mike Odom is a friend of mine. Shout out to Mike. He is not coaching UNLV. That is Barry Odom. So, apologies.
Boy, it'd be awesome if he was.
It would be great. It would be awesome.
All right, next game on the docket, and I think this one is a little bit up in the air. James and I texted a little bit about this, John, but Duke going to Tallahassee to play Florida State. It's a 13.5-point spread. I think obviously a lot of this hinges on how healthy is Riley Leonard if he does play, and then if he's not healthy enough to play, boy, they're a different animal to talk about. But Mike Elko's boys going in there trying to do what they can. How you feel about this one?
Yeah, I think Leonard, even if he can play, I think he's going to be limited in his mobility, which is a big part of his game. And I think it's also going to be a challenge going to Florida State for Duke. I am a believer in Mike Elko. I'm a believer in that in Mike Elko. I'm a believer in the defense he's building. I'll give you, when Texas A&M gets rid of Jimbo Fisher, I think they're going to go after Mike Elko. But I think Florida State's going to be too much. I think Leonard, even if he plays, he's probably not going to be very mobile. I think Florida State, those skill players, Keon Coleman and those guys, I think it's going to be too much. I think they're going to win, and I think they're going to cover the 13.5.
How you feel about this one, Jimmy? You like the Noles, or are you going to go with the Blue Devils?
I don't like this game at all. I don't like this game. I feel no confidence in this at all. I'm going with the Noles, but I don't like it. Just something about Duke this year. It's just something about him. Even if with Leonard's limited mobility, if he plays, I like Elko. I mean, it's just they embody his personality and everything about him, and they're just tough as nails, and they're in every game and they're in everything, and that what makes me nervous about the 13.5. I know it's in Tallahassee and that's a tough place to play, but even if it's a backdoor cover, I could see it happening. But I'm gonna go with the more talented team, the better edge talent, and I'm gonna go with the Noles.
Yeah, I'm taking the Knowles too, man. For me, it's the edge talent. They got 2 Sunday guys at wide receiver. I think they're going to be too much, especially given I think if Leonard was 100% healthy, boy, I would love this number for the Blue Devils. Would love it. Obviously, it probably wouldn't be at this number if he was completely healthy, but yeah, I think going in that environment, night game at Tallahassee, plant the spear, Chief Osceola, all of it. I like the Knowles in this one. All right, this is interesting too, right? You're getting Utah's defense going to the Coliseum to play USC's offense, which let's have a conversation about this. Looks a lot less vaunted after Notre Dame punched them in the mouth all night last Saturday. It looks like Utah going to be without Cam Rising again. I saw some articles this week that there are serious discussions about Cam Rising requesting a medical red shirt and coming back for year 7. So we'll see what goes on with that. Obviously, ACL tough to come back from. So it doesn't look like he'll be available. USC a 6.5 point home favorite here. How you feel about this, John?
Listen, I think Kyle Whittingham has done nothing but figure out a way to beat USC. I mean, Kyle Whittingham is that guy. He is a great coach. I love Kyle Whittingham. I think he uses his personnel as good as anybody in college football. But man, I think Lincoln Riley, I think Caleb Williams, I think those skill players, Cam Rising likely being missing again. I think USC is going to bounce back. I'm not a believer in USC. I think their defense is hot garbage, but I don't know that Utah has enough on the offensive side of the ball to score. I think they'll hold USC to, let's say 24, 21, 24. I just don't know that they have enough offense to match even that right now. And so I'm going to go with USC to win and cover the spread.
James, how you feel on this one?
This is an easy pick for me. As long as it's Riley versus Whittingham, I'm going with the Utes to cover. I don't care who's under center because it's just something about that matchup that it's. I don't know what it is. He owns him. So Williams looked terrible last week, and I have not seen him look that bad since he played Utah last. So I think USC's probably going to win this game because of Utah's anemic offense. But I would not be surprised if Utah gets some short fields and puts up some points that way. But USC's going to get some points in this game, and they're probably going to win. But I don't see it's going to be closer than everybody thinks.
Oh, God, I hate this game. Everything in my being tells me to pick Utah, but I need to make up some ground on my boy. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Trojans and hope that I can steal one back from you, James. I am losing the season-long competition against my boy here, John. So I need to make up some ground. So I'm going to take the Trojans for that reason. I do think, though, that offensively, they have the capability to score. And, man, the Utah showing in Corvallis is also swaying this a little bit for me. Like, they went up there and Oregon State just did what they wanted with them. And so, I think USC is gonna score too much. So yeah, I'm gonna go with USC too. All right, last one of the day. Boy, both these teams are in tough spots. Clemson got to go down to Coral Gables to play Miami. It feels to me like that Miami program is off the rails now. I think you lose the locker room a little bit when you make a call like Coach Cristobal did. Clemson a 3.5 point road favorite. How you feel about this one, John?
Yeah, listen, I think Clemson is in a similar situation to South Carolina in some ways. You heard Dabo Swinney this week saying maybe we should go out and lose a few games to get some of our bandwagoners out of our fan base. I don't think Clemson is in a good headspace going into this game. I just don't. And, you look at that and Miami, I think I heard that they haven't won an ACC home game under Cristobal yet. I think, Clemson hasn't lost at Miami in 100 years. But I think Miami is going to, again, Tyler Van Dyke. I think that offense is going to find a way to get it done against Clemson, and I think Miami's going to cover the 3.5 and likely win the game. I know they're an underdog at home, but I think Miami's going to probably win this game.
James, how you feel about this one, bud?
before last week, when after the terrible call on the not kneeling against Georgia Tech, I thought Miami was going to come out and really try to make a statement and bounce back from that, and they came out and laid an absolute egg. And I just don't see that team have anything to play for the rest of the season. They're just kind of looking like they're going to go through the motions. With that being said, I don't know how these guys, like, I know everybody says that Clemson's a cult and Dabo's the cult leader and everything like that, kind of tongue in cheek, but it's really starting to feel more and more like that, more cultish, the more the season goes on and the more that they're not as dominant as they have been in the past. I just don't know how he recovers from this if this season goes down the drain the way it is. So I originally had Clemson, but the more and more I thought about it, I'm going to go with the U and Miami and Cristobal to cover because I just think that they're more talented, which is really weird to say, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're just more talented. I can't remember the last time I thought that, teams in the ACC were more talented than Clemson, but they are this year.
Yeah, I don't know who either of these teams are, to be honest with you. I thought Miami had a lot going, and then I think the kneel or the non-kneel obviously has changed their dynamic a bit, right? I like Taylor Van Dyke. I like what their offense can do. They showed what they can do against A&M, against a good defensive line offensively at home. Obviously not the most electric home field anymore, which is crazy to say about a team that used to call the Orange Bowl home and be bananas all the time. And this Clemson team, man, I don't know. They just don't seem to have the juice or the guys that you're, like, scared of. But again, I'm going to try to steal one back. Since my boy has gone with the U, I am going to take Dabo and the Tigers to hopefully get a cover here. But I feel horrendous about the odds of that happening. So, yeah. All right, boys. Well, John, I feel good about it, brother. 8-2 is the clip to beat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Tell everybody where they can follow you before we go.
Hey, follow me on Twitter at John Tweets Sports, and you can find everything else from there. So thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it. Hopefully you make up some ground and y'all bring this thing a little bit closer for the rest of the year.
That's right. All right, John, we appreciate it, brother. Go Dogs.
See you. Go Dogs.